Hello folks, well, today I've put together a notice of liability, and of course in Britain and the Commonwealth and indeed the colonies, the highest jurisdiction is the common law, not to be confused with English common law. English common law of course is case law. If you want to be judged as somebody else was judged a couple of hundred years ago, then be my guest. Personally, as a man, I would not accept that, and therefore it's about invoking the common law, which is biblical, as I've already explained in past videos. So I'm just going to read through this report I put up today on St. George's Day, of course. They always get some good stuff together on St. George's Day as a rule, and today has been no exception. So, it says, the following body of words do make up your notice to the woman holding the office of Monarch and all Crown agents and officers subordinate in respect of the encroachment being carried out by all Crown agents and officers under command of the Crown Corporation, because of course she's a member of the Inner Temple, and the throned office of Monarch, and this is being carried out through the corporation's soul, Her Majesties Government. So whichever way you look at that, you hit the top office, and everybody that has taken an oath to that office, as I have explained before, it's a fiction. There is no flesh and blood tied to that title. So you do that, and everything beneath and subordinate operates according to the oath taken. So you have to hit the highest office in order to hit everything beneath that office and hold them liable. Now, to involve the common law and all rights afforded by the biblical text, use only your first name, uncapitalized, in order you do not decapitate your manhood. To be clear, you are presenting your man-womanhood in law as derived from the Word of God. Now, it's important that you don't bring last names or especially surnames into the mix, because if you look at the Bible, all the characters, of course, are first names only. So Moses, Jesus, Abraham, they're all just first names. There's no family names, there's no surnames in any of the biblical characters. So of course, if you're invoking the biblical jurisdiction, you have to act according to the doctrines as presented in the biblical text. So it's extremely important. Now, of course, I've said this before, but there is only one book in every court, and that is the Bible. And you have to invoke that jurisdiction if you wish to operate within that jurisdiction. And of course, judges, etc., are beneath that jurisdiction because they are acting in the fiction under title and acting in the capacity of a judge or a magistrate. So you're moving above that. And of course, you want a court of record if you're ever going in the courts. You make that very clear also, so nothing can be hidden, no shenanigans can be going on. As long as you hold that jurisdiction, you will have the authority in the matter, unless of course you've broken biblical law, and then like everybody else you're subject to that and subject to the judgments and the rulings. So if we work through biblical law, what it presents to us is a format as a hierarchy, and it goes God, Father, that's the male or man of the house, mother, offspring. Now also, when it comes to the common law, we have to deal with property to keep it in the jurisdiction, and of course your offspring and your wife and vice versa are classed as property. Now don't misunderstand that and think it gives you rights to do anything. It doesn't. It's just the terms that you need to use to keep it within that jurisdiction. So get off this idea that, oh, you mean, no, it's not ownership, it's property. Okay, it's a big difference between ownership and property. Property is the term representing all that is within your possession. Now, when you do this in relation to your family, when you're presenting this notice of liability, it only needs to be the father who names himself on the order, because of course you've got the mother and offspring as carried through from that. So the head of the family unit, according to the biblical law, is the father. So you were putting this notice together, and obviously you're declaring it to on behalf of your family, your property. Now, this notice is aimed specifically at the woman that claims to be the head of state and the holder of the office of monarch, which then positions all subordinate agents and officers included in that. So anybody that's took the oath to QE2, any interactions you have with these people, the liability goes back to the woman claiming to be the head of state. And as I've said, no flesh and blood actually attached to it. It's just deception all the way around. But at the end of the day, the claim is made. It's a false claim. But then everybody operates according to that claim as fact. So, you're going into court here and you're dealing with claims of other people who are claiming positions of power and authority. Therefore, they are liable, whether they are flesh and blood, tied to the oath or not. It doesn't matter. This office is the one facilitating the trespass on all of you in relation to this lockdown and the procedures that they're intending to carry out under this lockdown. So, what I've actually done, I've presented this notice. I've given two options. I've put one with my name in to show you how to actually write it, because, as I said, you don't want to be doing any joined up writing. That's classed as cursive and the language of the dead. So you never want to be signing anything. You autograph. Now, when you autograph, you would present your name unjoined, not in capital letters, of course, and you don't need to use a capital letter to start your name either, because again, in Roman law, it's classed as decapitation of self. So it says, I hereby put you on notice, take notice, my apologies. I hereby put you on notice, Elizabeth Alexandra Mary, or is also made known to the realm Alexandra Elizabeth Mary, because I have heard and seen that used on occasion. Now, I don't know which way that is round is correct, but either way, we're hitting all claimed names here, just to be absolutely certain we're hitting the correct woman. And it says, as the claimed holder of the office of British monarch, and again I've used the word claim because it is claimed, so we're dealing in the facts of the matter. As the claimed holder of the office of British monarch and all your claimed offspring and subordinates, so again we're using the term claimed because there obviously is controversy as to who's what, where, when, but we don't want to get into that. We're not interested in that. It's irrelevant. We're dealing here with what is being claimed. Including your offspring and subordinates, including Charles Philip Arthur George, which is Prince Charles, the holder of the title the Prince of Wales. He also holds quite a few other titles as well, but we're specifically dealing here with Charles because he operates the Duchy of Lancaster on behalf of his mum, and he also operates the Duchy of Cornwall. So this guy has some power. And William Arthur Philip Lewis, which is Charles's claimed son, although again there's controversy there, but again we don't need to get into that. It's not relevant. The relevance comes in the fact that these men and women all hold title in the realm. So we'll go William Arthur Philip Lewis, holder of the title the Duke of Cambridge. Now this guy's being put up as a front for a huge system, which I've presented a video in relation to ARC, Absolute Return for Kids. And we have to look at the symbolism with ARC in the sense that when you go back to the biblical story, Noah was the man who decided who and what would be existing after the catastrophe. So the symbolism is there. It's the same thing, that through this system of programming that they've carried out with the children, who they are quite convinced are going to jump into all this technical nonsense that they're dishing out with the apps that will determine whether you're around anybody that's had a test, COVID. And again, they depend on this test first to fill the database with all your information to make these apps work. And of course, you have to consent to downloading this app. So it's all being done consensual, even though they're using the idea of its force. No, the only authority that they're using is fear. If they can have you afraid, you will do this. So the Duke claims include any and all derivatives of such names as liable for the following encroachment against the common law of the land, not to be mistaken for the English common law, which is case law, and as I've already described, you do not want to be being in court judged on those terms. I, Sean, a flesh and blood man, as derived from the word of God, hereby put you on notice for the liability of limiting my capacity to trade and for demanding I stand under house arrest. So that covers the fact that we are no longer allowed to operate our trade, whatever that may be. And of course, a burden is being placed upon us and our capacity limited in this command that we remain in the home, which is house arrest. Whether they wizardry that anyway, that's what is going on right now. It is your intent to enforce medical interventions through your subordinate officers and agents upon I, which is an unlawful burden for which you are also liable. Again, anybody that places a burden on you is liable for the consequences of that burden. In the same way, if you limit somebody's capacity, you are liable. Now, again, we're dealing with man here. Okay. In respect of the above, you are clearly making an encroachment upon the territory, rights, individual liberties, an intrusion into, an invasion of, infiltration of, all afforded rights as derived from the word of God. So basically what I'm saying here is that the trespass is in contradiction to the ordained rights as given to you in the biblical description of a biblical man who exists under God only and will be judged by God only. Which is a clear trespass upon I and my property, which includes my conjugal partner and mother to my offspring, each of which are my property. Now, I've used the term conjugal partner because so many people are not married today. So that just takes you out of any of that kind of nonsense, okay? You have and continue to make gradual advance beyond the usual and acceptable limits. Now, that does stand from biblical standpoint, but it also stands from the legal standpoint in the sense that the government is a servant to you, the taxpayer, the public, because you pay for the existence of the government. Without you, your money, your tax, there would be no government. And people forget this at the moment. They're running around borrowing huge amounts of money to pay their own corporate agents, their own corporations, their own medical, all the systems that they've got shares in. They are furnishing those companies by insisting you buy PPE, these ventilators, that you're paying all the military to operate for the trusts. And we're paying the trusts. All this money, it's not going to you, it's not going into the public purse, it's going into the corporate empire and all its agents and offshoots. That's what they are furnishing with these bailouts. And of course, because it's the government doing it, the liability for that debt is being placed upon you, the taxpayer. Now, that's totally unlawful. Absolutely. It's illegal, never mind unlawful, but we don't want to go in there. Right. The only acceptable remedy is to cease in all matters pertaining to the above breach of encroachment. Now, just as a small adage, because we've offered the remedy, but we just have to define what our words are actually meaning, because of course we don't want any kind of legalese to gain entrance into any of this nonsense. That your claim is specific, there is no meanderings, there's no wizardry that can be going on, that the words mean what they say. So I've put definitions. The history behind encroach is likely to hook you in. First appearing in English in the 16th century, the word derives from the Middle English encroachen, which means to get or seize. Okay? And the source for that is Merriam-Webster. Now, I've also added that all words are to be understood in their original definition as defined in law, and outside any and all legal definitions decreed by the Law Society. Because the Law Society, any society is allowed to have its own language. And of course the Law Society uses legalese, which means they present words to you that you believe you understand because of your education, but they're allowed to have their own language, so they can change the meaning of these words, which is why when you enter into the legal realm, whether it's admiralty or even maritime, you are going in there and you can go in there with a bulletproof case, as you would believe, but they only need to change one word, and as long as the judge prosecutor gets it, you will lose in that case. So you need to define your words. It's important there as well. So that's the notice of liability that I've put together today. Now that will stand in any court of law, and simplicity is the key to this. You do not need to go into insanity and complex language and words and such. It's just, it's opening you up to failure. So simplicity is the key. And in the first paragraph, using the term claimed, it removes any doubt in the sense that you are dealing with the men and women who claim the title and the office that gives them the authority and power that they have wielded. Now, we also have to understand as well that we know that the royal family in this nation for many years, from Queen Victoria's birth, has had the Rothschilds involved. So we know that the royal families of Britain, since the birth of Queen Victoria, have been run and controlled by the House Rothschild on behalf of the hidden royalty, and of course operating through the Committee of 300, which is why it's global. The Committee of 300 is made up of the biggest psychopaths in each nation who have managed to accrue the biggest wad. So that's how they've managed to pull the world together under this nonsense. So that is the notice of liability. Now, you don't want to be posting that through the Royal Mail, because as I've seen experienced many times, they only need to put one person. They know what's coming, they know what to expect. Basically, you need to keep it out of the Royal Mail. You can post this to your police station. You put them on notice. You can post this on Facebook or anywhere on the internet, because you've given notice. It's then incumbent on them to find the facts, which is the very strategy they use against us. They put the facts out, it's up to us to find them, and that's the way they operate. So you're putting that back on them. You are playing them at their own game, but you're not actually playing here. You are serious. You are keeping it within law, which is law. You are enforcing the law. You are servicing the law, so that you have the authority here in this matter. And you could also handpost it to the courts. Again, by giving the courts this formal notice, nobody could bring a case against you having given notice as to the liability you've put on them as officers and agents of the Crown. you've given them the facts. They can't come at you with the nonsense as though you are a dead trust. You've brought life into this, you've presented life, you've removed yourself from the dead trust, which is what they've abused as the birth certificate, bankrupted them, and are now looking to kill the creditor in order that the debt that they've accrued is no longer payable. That's the First World War, that's the Second World War. The Third World War, of course, started the minute the Second World War ended, with the introduction of the huge social state and the National Health Service, which has killed more people than both wars together. And it's been consensual. Just as when you go to war, if you go to war, you've consented to go and kill another. You are then open to be killed because you broke spiritual law. You broke the spiritual laws that this nation was set up on. So you've lost the spiritual protection the minute you consent to go and kill another. Now, that doesn't stand for self-defense, because then you're dealing in natural law. If you are attacked, you within your rights to defend yourself by whatever methods you deem fit, because you are defending yourself from an attack. This is all dealing with you going out to attack, which First World War and the Second World War, people actually went to fight to do this killing, and that's on all sides, which is why the West was so obliterated from those points that it's never recovered. And of course, with what we're experiencing now, they don't have no intention for it ever to recover. They are setting out a completely new world order in which, if you want to play out, if you want to come out of house arrest, if you want to go and trade again, they're saying you can only do that if you take medical tests to fill the corporate databases, to activate these apps that they're insisting everybody is going to download, which your phone app will then communicate with all those around you, and then basically, based on the information you've got within that database as to whether you've had the test, whether you've had this garbage, it will alert everybody around you that they're all of a sudden around somebody that's probably, no, they're not had the test, bloody, they're not immunity certified. This is the important thing that you need to understand. This system that they're setting up is pure evil, and you can imagine the nonsense it's going to create amongst the populations if you are stood in a queue and all of a sudden everybody's phone's going off and beeping because it's telling them you are not immunity certified. Yeah, I mean, that's just going to cause so much panic amongst the younger generations because they believe everything that comes from the telephone, but it's also going to create a hell of a lot of violence. This is going to cause a lot of problems, and this is what they want. They've decided to depopulate, and obviously when they sat around the table, they're looking for the greatest way to amuse themselves, in which we happily run and do that. And nothing could be better and greater than that, than causing civil unrest based on the apps on the telephones. So it is important that you understand with these tests, what you're actually going to be doing is filling the database with the information. And there's no state checks on these databases. This is private enterprise under the corporate system, moving to gain your genetic information and the state of your body, because they're going to, eventually it's going to go to blood tests, etc. You really don't want to be entering this system and giving this system life by giving it your information. And it's so important that you understand this now, because it's clear that they've announced it today that they're going to move with this app. They've announced today that the social distancing is going to remain, which is military operation, in that it is easier to surveil people when they are apart from other people. The AI, the surveillance systems that they now put in would work much better for them if everybody's 2 meters apart. Are you with me there? There's also, it's been suggested that the military, who announced yesterday that they've set up supply bases all over the country, and that they are going to be involved in the testing in support of these pretend NHS staff, because most of the NHS staff are self-isolating. So who these people are that are dancing and singing in our hospitals, lying to you and pretending that they're full, we need to know who these people are, basically, because they're not as they're being portrayed, and they're obviously happy to operate in this manner. I have been told that the nurses, one nurse has come out and said that they've all been told that if they disclose anything that's going on in these hospitals, they'll lose more than the job. Now, what that's supposed to mean, I don't know, but if you're losing your job is one thing, but what's the more? You know, that's threats, that's threatening behaviour, that's terrible. So that's a burden and a limitation to your capacity to unlawful acts, basically. It's trespass. And there's also been spoken of that we do know that they have direct energy weapons that they can actually target people with, and they've been doing this for a very long time. And this is classed as gang stalking. It's a part of the system that they operate to attack people who are like me, who are not just sharing information. We create information in a way that you can understand what's going on. So, you know, we've been targeted. I've been targeted. Well, I've probably been targeted since I was born, to be quite honest. They made quite a mess of me when I was a kid. They got me then. But suffice to say, that's the nature of the beast, and all of those people that have been operating in this for a long time, we're very aware of it, and we've learnt how to deal with it. But what they're saying, what's being said now, is that the fact that the military have announced that they're going to be supporting these testing mobile stations would be the perfect opportunity to place in car parks of superstores, etc., where they have this social distancing outside, to operate under the cover of these testing vehicles, when in fact they are vehicles with these weapon systems in them. So that's something that needs to be at least kept in mind, because that's quite scary. The mechanics of these things are various. They can do quite a lot of things, and of course, if you all of a sudden was targeted while in a queue and fell to the floor, you're going to be whisked off as a COVID patient, and probably off to the Nightingale hospitals and never seen again. So you really have to take notice of what's going on here, and more importantly, how important this notice of liability is for you and your family. Because, you know, when you put people on notice of liability, there is a liability there if any of the officers and agents make trespass. So you've got to go to the top. You know, it's not a personal thing, but the British system operates with the highest office in the land is the office of Monarch. So that's what I've put out today, and it's been well received so far. There's been a drop off this evening of people looking at it, but I really do suggest you get into this and post it up as notice of your intent. You've put your name in, as I said. I've done 2 formats. It's just your first name. You don't even need to capitalise your initial, so you're not decapitating yourself, and that again fixes you. They know that you are speaking of a flesh and blood man, as derived from the word of God, and of course then you are operating in the common law, the highest jurisdiction in the British realm. Post it to the police, through the police stations, post it to your council offices, post it to any organisation that is acting as a Crown agent, and you've put them all on notice. Then, you know, this is how you do. You send it to the courts. You've immediately put the Crown on notice, because of course they are Crown courts. And I've done this before in relation to title, and you know, if these people that exist in our judiciary and that operate our courts, and if they are to remain honour bound and duty bound, then when you present the facts in this manner, they have to honour that. They're not, you know, you're not going to war with anybody. It's not a war. What you've done is present your standing, and it has to be recognised, or they're no longer acting under honour, and their system will collapse like a pack of cards. Because this is the reason why it hasn't collapsed, in the sense that they are still acting under honour, even in the legal system, in the sense that you don't know what's going on, so it's up to you to find out. So they're not actually being dishonourable in the sense that they're operating according to the law society. It's you that needs to understand your standing, and once you present it, then for them to remain honour and duty bound, they have to acknowledge and recognise the standing. And of course, if anything that's brought you to that point, or anybody's interfered or interacted with you in the lesser jurisdictions, treating you as a legal person, and you've already presented the facts, they're liable. They're liable for their actions, they're liable for any costs that may incur, anything. And that's the way that the British system works. And it's a good system. It really is a good system, because if you earn that, if you educate yourself to that point, you are operating according to the Bible, you can operate within that jurisdiction, and the entire system has to acknowledge it. So it's very important, and you really need to get into this and know that this is your protection in law for everything that they are planning. I don't expect it to be picked up right quick, but I expect it, once you do start to understand its value, that you understand that this is the method, the remedy, in order to hold this nonsense off your flesh and blood and your family. So I will leave you with that until the next time.